is so big. It's the Expanse. Hey, it's big. Everybody, welcome to Two Comic Book Dudes. This is CBTV Talk, talking about the Expanse, episode 2 from their first season on SyFy. Great show so far. I've finished episode 2. I've started on episode 3. I know, Justin, you've already watched up through 4, right? So all the stuff we talk about, you'll be like, I can't tell you. I've heard great things about the story itself, though. I know the guy that I work with, he's read the books, and he's like, they talk about this being like Game of Thrones in space, and he said, you'll find out why it's like Game of Thrones in space by the time they get to what happens at the end of the first book. And I was like, oh, thanks. So you're saying everybody's going to die? So anyway,
I don't know if they're talking about that or just everybody like trying to unseat everybody for power or something. Maybe
could be. It's hard to tell. But anyway, this is a great show. A really good cast. Very strong characters. 3 really main characters that we're 4 that we're following, but 3 that we kind of regularly follow. There's Christian, who's the Undersecretary of the UN on Earth. There is Holden, who is the whatever he was, the XO of the former ship, the Canterbury, which is now just a big debris field, as we know at the end of episode 1. It was pretty much nuked by the Martian ship, and then we have Detective Miller on the Belt on Sirius Station, who's trying to hunt down Julie Mao and figure out how this all ties together. How she. We are trying to figure out, I guess, well, how is she the linchpin in this whole story? Because really, she seems to be the pivot point for everybody, and we just need to figure out how all the stories tie together. So, with this, my first note here for this episode is boom, because end of the episode we had the missiles heading right to the Canterbury, hit it, boom, exploded. There's nothing left, just debris. So. Right off the bat, we have the group that's on the Night, which is the shuttle from the Canterbury, dealing with the debris. It's definitely not raining men; it's raining pieces of the ship. I guess there could be men in there too, but yeah, it's a mess. But tears up the ship, messes up their antenna, radio shots, seems to mess up their life support a little bit too, oxygen supplies and all that stuff, and the airlock is messed up, so they have to manually close that, and they vent some of their atmosphere. So they're in bad shape, floating around in this little shuttle that wasn't meant for this kind of deep space survival.
Sustained flight. It was a short range craft.
Yep. And they even made the comment in the first episode, it'll probably make it there and back to the few clicks it would take to get them to the ship and back. So, so there's some scary moments there where we're just not sure what's going to happen, if they're going to survive, if they're not. We figure they're going to survive because there's more episodes. But it's still a lot of tense moments. It's pretty good. And then there's tense moments between the crew as they all just try to figure out what to do. And there's definitely this battle for who's in charge. And you have Amos and Nadia, who are kind of just this weird relationship. Holden, who's trying to be the leader that he didn't want to be in the first place. Shed, who just doesn't want to be there. When he said, I just want to let you know, I don't want to be here in the first place. And then Alex is the captain, and he's just kind of going with the flow. Whoever tells him to do something, let's just do it. But they all kind of butt heads there. It's interesting, just the dynamic and how things kind of shift at this point when there's a real crisis.
Right. There's no rank anymore.
Right. Yep. So then we jump back and forth. We're still jumping back and forth between Earth and the Belt and what's going on out on the Night. There's just that shift of perspective back and forth, which is good. It keeps us on our toes, like, what's going on now? What's going on now? So I had a note here that water is provided by Mars and Earth to Sirius Station, and they're holding water back. and we don't know exactly what's going on that they're holding it back. The shipments are delayed, they're saying, but they think that they're being held back as kind of punishment,
Right.
And really, what better way to punish someplace than to withhold the resources that they need to survive? So,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's illustrated really well, I thought, in this episode, because Miller's taking a shower, and then he gets the little alert: water ration exceeded, and he's all soaped up. He's like, "Crap," pretty funny. So then, when he breaks into Julie Mao's apartment and uses his cool little gadget thingy, he sees that her water is 97%, so he decides he's going to rinse off.
Rinsing out his hair.
Yep, it's pretty funny. So he's very resourceful, and definitely thorough about this kind of, he's going to get the job done regardless of what it takes, legal or not. So it's kind of interesting. So he finds some files, he finds some messages, and the messages are interesting. One from her father, basically threatening her with selling the Razorback. And the Razorback's some kind of a ship that she had. And you saw the suit and everything that was in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so some kind of whether it was a sporting ship or whatever you want to call it, that she had, something fancy. And then her message back to him was like, I don't want your capitalist stuff, So definitely the rebellion going on, It seems like maybe she did join the OPA, this terrorist organization, or this not terrorist organization necessarily, but like a rebellion of sorts from the Belchers. So we don't know exactly what happened. We just know she ends up on the Scopuli before the folks from the night get there, and then she's gone when they get there. Right. So beyond that, we don't know all the puzzle pieces from that part yet. So we'll find out, I think, because especially at the end of this episode, we think they're getting closer to kind of finding out what happened to Julie, even if they don't know that that's what they're going to find out. So,
right.
So let's see. Oh, the hamster thing. I made a note about the hamster in the wheel, and I thought that was kind of funny because there's this hamster in the wheel, and he's running in the wheel, and he's like, "Keep going, guy. You're almost there. You'll get there." And in a way, it's kind of how he feels. I think you just running the same thing every day, but eventually you'll get there, even if that means you're just dead.
Right. If that's where you're going.
Right. It's pretty funny. So back on Earth, we've got Chris Jen, who in last episode she had been interrogating this prisoner, one of the terrorists that they found, the OPA guys who had some illegal stealth technology. And he grew up in the belt, so he was born into low gravity, and so the gravity of Earth hurt him. So in this one, they have him in this water tank with a mask on, like a back-to-tank thing, and basically helps him survive in the higher gravity. And they have an interesting discussion back and forth. And she gets a little bit of that dogma, that kind of what he believes, and just a little bit, but not much. I mean, he's very hooded as far as his comments go. He doesn't really tell her anything, and so she basically makes a decision to have him sent to the lunar colony to be interrogated up there, lighter gravity, and but she's like, that's the only thing that he'll enjoy. So
it's the only thing they'll let her do at that point.
Yeah, true.
Because she was made to put him in the tank. She had him hanging on the wall.
Yeah, yep. So she was going to take him out again, too, to question him. And then they're like, you can't do that. That's against all this, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, whatever, send him to the moon. And on the way to the moon, he slips out. They have these little collars around their necks that snap into place to give them an injection to help them, to help everybody survive the high G-force that it takes, to jump. And he yanks his head forward out of that thing so it meets behind his neck, and then the G-forces kill him. So he basically commits suicide just so he doesn't have to be questioned.
Right.
So he must have known something. I mean, he had this. Yeah. But we don't know, we still don't know why. We know the stealth technology. We know the Martian ship had stealth technology. The Doniger? Was that the one that? Yeah. That's the one picking him up.
Yep.
Okay. So the other ship, we don't know what that one was, just that it was Martian. So, yeah, I don't know. That whole thing, we'll see. Some other little bits of story that happen on Sirius I thought were interesting. They are up to talk to that guy, whoever he is, some representative of the governor, and they're looking down and they see the dead patch of grass. And the guy complains, "Oh, someone's stealing our water, and they're making this not green. And don't they know how important this is to contribute to the oxygen generation and all that stuff?" And of course, Miller's like, "Screw you, buddy."
Right.
And the other guy, what's his partner's name?
I can't remember his name.
I can't either. And they just he always just keeps calling him Earther or Newbie or whatever. So his story in this is interesting. We find out a little bit more about that near the end of the episode. But he basically is like, well, maybe if everybody had this view, then they would feel the same way. Kind of a snarky little remark that, here you are up in your high tower looking down on this beauty, and everybody else is down underneath it looking up at you. And if they had the same view, and he's like, "Here," and he hands him a cactus. "Now you can create your own view." I was like, wow.
He carries that cactus around like the rest of the episode, it seems.
Yeah. Well, and what he does with the cactus was kind of interesting. And it makes you question, like, well, why is he doing that? Because he takes the cactus later and he goes to that prostitute from the first episode that they helped out who killed that guy. And he gives it to her, and they walk into the room together, and he pulls the door shut. And you're going, "Oh, what are they?" So he's paying for this with cactus? That's kind of interesting. But then, was it in this episode we find out what he's doing with her?
Not in this one.
Nope. So we can't talk about that yet. But that's kind of interesting, too. I mean, it's just, things are not always as they appear. Okay. Definitely that's a theme of this show, right? Okay. So... All right, so they go after whoever's stealing water. They find these kids that have hooked into the system, and they're siphoning it off, and they're going to sell this water. And he roughs this kid up, and he finds out that Grigas, which was the gang that kind of controlled this area, is gone. They've left this area and given it up. So now all of these different street punks are moving in and taking over. And I think he sees two things: one, that's valuable information, and the other is this is just some punk kid, and I'm not going to take him to jail. I'm going to rough him up a little bit, scare him, and then send him on his way, And hopefully then he'll be an informant for me later if I need something. So it's one thing I like about Miller is he's all about helping the Belchers, even though some of them don't really like him. In fact, they said one of them said he was a traitor. You know? So back to the ship. Shed and Alex... they had to share oxygen because, skip that whole part. Holden and Amos went outside the ship to fix the antenna. Everybody's oxygen short supply, right? So they're out there trying to fix this thing. And I thought the interchange between Holden and Amos was...
But they're low because they had that fire.
Right.
And they had to vent some atmosphere to get the fire out.
Yep. That's right. And even the suits, though, the suits are only set up for limited use anyway.
Right. And they had already used them.
Right.
When they went into the scopuli.
Scopuli, yep. That's right. So they were already down. So Amos and Holden are working as fast as they can on the antenna. And it was interesting, I had the exchange between him and Amos, because he asked Amos, "Are you and Naomi an item?" And Amos is kind of like, "An item? Like, what do you mean by that?" Like, he doesn't even understand that concept. He's just like, she tells me what to do and I do it.
Right.
And, if she wasn't around, I wouldn't know whether to kill you or, leave you alone. It's like, I was like, wow, that's just really, something's up there. It's weird. Yeah. So is he mentally not all there and she kind of helps to guide him and be his conscience, or I don't know. So it's weird. That
was a weird statement, and the way he said it was just kind of like...
It was creepy.
Does she have some kind of remote control in your brain? Or like...
Yeah, it was really strange. Just very, very strange interchange. But you can see it later. She says something. He goes, "Yeah, let's do that." It just follows her. I mean, she saved his life or whatever. Who knows? So, But yeah, so Alex's oxygen's running really low. He's the pilot, and they really need him. And Naomi basically goes off on Shed. It's like, you're the medic. Do something. Fix him. So he taps into his line and basically shares oxygen with him. And they almost both end up dying.
Right.
But then, Holden uses the tried and true method for fixing an antenna. Kick it a few times.
In Soviet Russia.
That's right.
This is how we fix.
Yep, and it started right up.
Yep.
Must have been part of the Mir space station. Left over. So.
Yeah, they used pieces.
Yeah. So it was pretty good, and they Shed actually is dead, and they resuscitate him. Afterwards, Holden punching on his, giving him mouth to mouth and beating on him, and he's like, "What did you do to me?" So I think you don't understand how painful it would feel afterwards for somebody doing chest compressions on you. You know.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. Then there's the interchange with Christian and the other guy back on Earth. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about the war, and he's like, "Oh, the Cold War, this and that goes on, and this," and she's like, "There is no Cold War. This is something else."
Right. The Cold War's over. Yeah,
the Cold War's over, and that's an important point, I think, as we go forward, because in the Cold War, I mean, for those of you who lived through it, all of us, hopefully some of you anyway, it was all about setting back and making more weapons and scaring the other guy into submission. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about attacking. It wasn't about fighting. It wasn't about killing. It was about setting back and proliferating. Right. And so in this way, too, Mars had their army, UN has their army, and they basically were back and forth with each other like, okay, we have this, and you have this, and we have this, and you have this, and we have this, and then whoever... Yeah, and whoever would blink first is the loser. Well, in this case, though, we have... the belt doing stuff, and that she said something about if the Belters are in bed with the Martians, then we have a problem. If they side with them, then we have an issue, and that seems to be what's happening. The OPA guy had stealth technology that the Martian military has, so we have this, coalition going on that's dangerous, very dangerous for Earth. Yeah. Yep. So then, yeah, it's all political. It's very cool. I mean, it's interesting. It's well put together. Back on the night, they're trying to amplify the signal so they can get a message out to everybody. They go and collect all the batteries and hook everything up and basically make it work. Miller is that we did that already. We talked about that. Prisoner. So the last part of this is kind of interesting because Holden starts to put together some pieces to what's happened in a way. And he realizes that, okay, the message went out, somebody retrieved it, and they find out it's a Martian ship, the Donager, which is the biggest, the lead ship of the Martian Navy, right?
Flagship. Yeah.
Flagship. So, definitely a dangerous place to be if you're not aligned with the Martian military. Mm-hmm. So he does a message, and he says, here's what's going on. We went to the Scopuli. It was set up with this. Martian ship showed up, blew up the Canterbury. We're running for our lives. Now we're about to get eaten up by the Donager. We don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And we just want you to know, this is what happened. The Martians destroyed this ship. That's why there's no ice back to the belt and blah, blah, blah. So he sends it, but Alex says, the ship's too close. The scramblers were active, so it probably didn't go anywhere. And so we don't know. Did it go out? Did anybody get it? We don't know yet. Wait till next episode. We'll find out what happened. Yeah. And Miller is hunting down the Razorback. And so he goes to one of the docks and he's talking to him. He goes, hey, this person? And the guy's like, oh, I'll never forget her. She took some guy and planted him on his face on the ground, but she got on this freighter, the Scopuli. And so now we see the connection finally where he's seeing how she got onto the Scopuli. So we got the first part of the story. We know how she got there. We just don't know what happened after. So we'll find out.
All the afters.
Yeah. After. So Miller's partner. Yeah. Okay. So that's really pretty much it. I mean, at the end of it, the Martian ship picks him up, and it's like, you are now the property of the Martian military, and they're like, oh, so
yeah, we're all gonna die, man.
Yeah, it's
game
definitely
over, man. Game over.
It's definitely a bad situation all the way around. But it's cool. I mean, we're in a place where we're like, everybody's holding their breath now. This is the second episode. First episode, good things happen, bad thing happened. This one, bad things happened all the way through. So you're like, man, something good's got to happen now, right? We'll see if good things happen in episode 3.
Craziness.
It's good. I mean, I like it. I hope it gets picked up for a second season.
Oh yeah, I'm enjoying there actually being like a space show. Yeah. There hasn't been one in a few years now, it seems. So
yeah, that's true.
It seems like this show has a really good feel to it. I like where it's going, and yeah, I hope they pick it up for a whole lot more.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some good space shows, but they just haven't really taken off. There's and some on some other channels too, but yeah, nothing consistent, nothing really, nothing really cool like this. This is well put together. It's a great. I mean, it's a great story. The first book was up for, what was it, the Nebula Award back in 2013, I think it was, or 2008 or whatever year. Anyway, a few years ago. But yeah, I mean, that's cool in and of itself. It's an award-winning book, or it was an award-nominated book. The series is popular. You can pick that up on Amazon. Leviathan Awakes. I love Leviathan Wakes, I think, is the first episode or first book in the series. Yep, you can find that on Amazon. So yeah, definitely worth picking up the books if you're interested in that. So all right, that's season 1, episode 2 of The Expanse. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us comments on what you think. If you're watching the show, awesome. Let us know what you think about it. If you're not watching it, let me know if I'm doing a good enough job narrating the story back to you. I try to do a play-by-play
on the show and know what happened.
Yeah, right. Well, I try to get the high points. I don't read all the lines and everything, but I do make notes while I'm watching it. So, all right, we're going to be working on episode 3 shortly, so we'll get that review out to you. And then episode 4, because episode 3 was just on last night, episode 4 will be out next week, and we'll have a video ready to launch as soon as that comes out. And you can actually watch episode 1 through 4 on sci-fi.com if you want. Also, the SyFy Now app on Xbox One, you can download that SyFy Now app and watch all 4 episodes. So, if you got one of those, check it out.
So,
it's pretty cool.
It's also on if you have Comcast, it's on demand. I'm sure it is, like AT&T and all that other stuff too.
Yeah,
so
it's cool.
You can watch them all. This is a great show, so give it all the support you can.
Definitely. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Have a good one.